dead, because I've seen him make some tough decisions, and I know that these ones are really tough. This is like going after the powers that be, right? And sometimes if you're too clean, you really cannot get the dirty job done. And leadership is dirty. I tell people oftentimes, leadership is not good and evil. Oftentimes, we think in a very shallow way to think that leadership is about good and evil. It's not that. It's between, can I take out a Osama bin Laden, but there could be innocent 10 people that will die, right? Or I leave Osama bin Laden and there's another chance he will kill another 2,000 people. Either way, people must die, and innocent people must die. And that's the kind of decision you are confronted with as a leader. It's not an easy option. There's no easy option. And that's why for me, I will say that some people in Tinubu's government are not carrying their weight, and they're part of the reason why it's making it look as if he's not making the right decision. And hopefully maybe he will rejig his cabinet and right people are put in place, and who knows, 2 years. But of course, if we don't see changes, I definitely cannot vote for him in the next 4 years.
You're saying, and because you do international business, so you know the effect of the dollar.
Yeah,
especially when you are taking naira to fund a dollar or a pound economy, or you're taking dollar to fund the naira economy, you will feel the effect because that exchange is there. What have you noticed in that mix?
Well, I've noticed that some people are profiting from it at the detriment of innocent, legitimate Nigerians. Some people don't want the naira to stabilize, because, they have stashed dollars in their houses, and, I don't know why EFCC isn't chasing them. There are houses in this country, particularly in this Abuja, you people are... I heard you have joined them down here in Abuja.
I live with them.
Yeah, you live with them.
For the purpose of my job.
For the purpose of your
job. But I focus on my job.
You're not part of them. I'm not part of them. I heard that this Abuja is houses full of dollars and people just... And I know that law enforcement can go after them if they really want to. And these are people really sabotage. And these are not... They've never done business one day in their life. One day. One business. So you have such people... You also have to face the reality that Nigeria is a consumption country. It's not producing. And we haven't seen intentional decision on the part of the government to force all of us to become producers, to encourage production, to discourage consumption. And as long as we continue to... I today have been insulted on social media that I don't wear designers. Okay, but this is how we can support our nation. This is an Hausa cap. These are local attires that are locally. My tailor is based in Abuja. Vodi, free advert for Vodi.
I'll make sure he pays.
He has to pay, right? So these are little things you and I can start doing to make sure that our naira gets strengthened, supporting Nigerian businesses. I'm an advocate for that. And I think, and I'm repeating it, sometimes, honestly, I see the sincerity of Mr. President on really wanting businesses to grow. But I don't think he can do it alone. Many of the people around him have never done business. They don't really understand how do we support entrepreneurs. You see people making decisions, National Assembly making decisions. They are not inviting the stakeholders. And then before you know, a law is passed. When I look, I'll give a practical example. The whole real estate and infrastructure concept in Nigeria is messed up. And I'll give you two major ones. Ikoyi. The whole of Ikoyi, there is no mall. No mall. The whole of Ikoyi.
A shopping mall.
Shopping mall. Yeah. So you will, particularly during traffic, you may drive 1 hour to get to Admiralty before you see the first mall. Or go to VI and the other part of VI. Now, who plans an estate that way? Because typically, yes, we understand that you are zoning some places for commercial, some places for residential, but there are certain essential commercial that should be close to
within the residential
to help day to day. The same thing you see here in Abuja as well. And then some people planned it, and they call themselves, we have been in this game for 30 years. We are older. But pure nonsense. So there's a need to rejig the entire system, including the civil service. My mother was a civil servant, God bless her soul, and I saw firsthand the rot in the civil service. Many times I have to follow my mom to work. She works in PACN. She was an accountant. I can't recall a day I went to work and somebody had resumed aside the cleaners. My mother was always the first. Many of our colleagues will call me by 10, some 11, walking and breathing. In fact, she became so popular in Meduguri, Mamolu, for helping people who they call their light, because she then will agree with them, okay, let's do flexible payment, deposit this amount, agree to pay this, then call the guys who need to fix, and then they go and fix their light for them. I was saying in Meduguri 2019, some people were still remembering what happened 20 years ago when she was an accountant in PACN. So I could see how many civil servants are part of the rot in the system, and they've turned themselves to a cabal that they themselves are behind the reason governments fail in this country.
You are into real estate, and I know that real estate in the US is not the real estate. It's not the same real estate here in Nigeria. It seems to be a bit more organized, and there are facts to the fact that in Nigeria, the origin of money laundering is tied to real estate in Nigeria. That's where you actually wash the dirty money. But
there are other sectors too, yes. But
real estate in Nigeria, if you look at our laws and how money laundering concept came about in Nigeria, you discover that real estate is at the heart of it. You wash the dirty money and you just ease into the system, and everybody thinks that you're a rich man. But from your own point of view, what do you make of that sector? Is it a sector that? Let me start by saying, what do you make of the sector in the first place? Before I go into what I wanted to say.
Well, I think, funny enough, the perception of real estate is that yes, it's a tool for money laundering and things like that, and I agree that it's half truth. And the proof of that is many estates that you see in Abuja here that nobody is living there. Right? If it's not money laundering, how come you had enough money to finish an entire estate and no human beings living there? Obviously, you use somebody else's money, a bulk money somewhere, and then you built it, and then you are struggling. You didn't even have the infrastructure in terms of sales and marketing structure to even sell it. So you're right in that sense. But there is also another category of legit entrepreneurs who are in real estate, and I fall into that category. And trust me, your EFCC can go investigate. They can verify. I fall into that category of people that our problem is even liquidity, right? Because sometimes you have struggled to be able to get the land, to now even build is an issue. Sometimes even when you convince an investor to say, okay, let's do off plan, right? Pay 100 million, I will give you 5 bedroom. Before 6 months to even do the construction, you now need 200 million to finish the house because of the devaluation of the naira.
An inflationary effect.
An inflationary effect. So when we continue like this, we are really, really struggling. And that's why for us, years ago, we had to move to Dubai. We had to, expand to the UK and to the US, because the Nigerian business was really, really struggling. And for me, I think that there's a lot that can be done. Look at the US, for example. If I need to, our project in Katy, for example, institution, I got pre-approval for the funds we need, 70% of the funds, right, in 24 hours. So all I need to do is to raise 30% of the funds. That does not happen in Nigeria, right? Except for some few elites, the organs at the top. But obviously we have not entered the organs at the top level. But Nigeria is supposed to work for everybody. It shouldn't be that because I know someone or I'm famous or I'm connected. It should work for everyone.
So the credit environment in other climes, they work smoothly, no matter who you are, no matter
and
what.
It is the reason why corruption is discouraged, because a director is already owning houses worth millions of dollars. How much is his salary? Right? And you are the one that make him to be that corrupt. You know why? Because in other clime, bring 10%. If you're a citizen of the US, right? 5%, 10%. You get your house, you get funding for the rest,
and you have a stable job.
And you have a stable job
to fund it. The same thing, you can drive.
30 years.
You can drive a 2024
absolutely
brand new car,
absolutely,
with little or less, just about 5% down payment.
Absolutely, and I'm happy that the president, has
the credit scheme.
Credit scheme. I pray again, because putting bankers to handle these things, I pray that it's managed well, and it's not some thing that is cornered to some. I hope that it becomes a law that a Nigerian can own a house
without any sweat.
Look at what Lin Kuan
without having to steal.
Yeah, if you have studied Lin Kuan Yew, Singapore became what it is because Lin Kuan Yew realized he had the same problem Nigeria is having. Most Singaporeans were not loyal. They were not patriotic. And he said the reason is because they don't own a house. So for me to make Singaporeans patriotic, I will make sure owning a house is a right. The same way with human rights. In other words, it's your right to own a house in Singapore. And then they came up with a policy that made house ownership a human right, a right of every citizen of Singapore. In a way that it doesn't matter what category, what class you are. No matter even how cheap the house is or whatever, but you are entitled to a house. And once he started doing that, because I know I have my house, I'm loyal to that nation. And let's see if Nigeria can do the same. You'll be shocked what will happen.
Yeah,
you'll be shocked.
And there is this proposition, I know, in the Lagos system. Lagos is always taking the lead. You see Lagos State, even under Fashola, the tenancy law regime somewhat want to favor the tenant rather than favor the landlord in what has become an arbitrary situation where the landlord will just come down hard on the tenant. But now we're seeing another scenario playing out where the government in Lagos is proposing a situation where you can pay your rent monthly. I know a lot of landlords will frown at that because they want their money in bulk. And this operates in the United States, for example, and in some other European countries, where if you have your money, you can pay. In fact, some people will even allow you to pay every 2 weeks because some people get paid every 2 weeks. Do you see that as a way to lessen the burden of the average person in Nigeria?
No, it will not work in Nigeria. You have over 40% unemployment rate. The reason why such policies work in America is because there is lower unemployment rates. There is guarantee of your pay every 2 weeks, every 1 month, and also the law allows you to evict your tenant if they default easily. Now, eviction in Nigeria is difficult.
In Lagos is 6 months notice.
Except you want to break the law.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just evict your tenant. So when you have such a law, and then you are now saying I should be paying every month, you have situation whereby the tenant will say, well, I won't pay for 6 months. After all, even if you go to court, right, before they even hear the case, I will have spent 6 months of free rent. Right? So I don't see that working. I think, again, it goes back to, sometimes we propose laws that are just touching the surface, that is not addressing the root cause of the problem. The real root cause of what we are going through in this country is that people can't have access to credit. Once we can structure, and let me also say this, I am always frustrated by the policies we make. Our policies are not facing the reality of our population. You hear a government official say, good news, we are rolling out a 5,000 housing unit federal. I'm like, I don't understand. 5,000. In a country that really, if we do the census, we're over 300 million. And data is showing, people are not even facing the reality of the trouble we're in. Lagos, according to Washington Post, by the year 2100 will be the largest city in the world. In the world, with over 80 million people. Now, 3 more largest cities in the world will be in this same Nigeria, according to Washington Post, not Nigerian newspaper. And there are so many research that is showing all these things. And Nigeria has a choice. Do we want to be the dumping ground by 2100? Or do we want, because that's what will happen. We will not be the market. Everybody wants to be selling to us because we can produce, but we can consume. They start dumping to us. Or do we want to do what China has done? To leverage that population and begin to build and begin to export. But again, we have to have the right policies. If President Tinubu is serious about, for example, the housing sector, we need to be thinking about, and I'm not kidding you, how do we have 10 million housing in the next 4 years? 20 million housing, 50 million housing. That's the thinking. And China has done it. China has been able to use technology. China can build a 7-story in 1 day. Prefab construction. A lot of concepts has come in. And if you really want to unlock the wealth of Nigeria, go into real estate. Pump into real estate. That's what has happened even in developed countries. President that decide to say, oh yeah, let's get back to construction. Let's build houses. Because as you are building those houses, people are getting paid. They have to work. Civil engineer, contractor, bricklayer. And you open up the entire economy because of those massive, infrastructural projects. Look at what's happening. I posted a picture yesterday. Dubai just announced the president, the prime minister, the Sheikh of Dubai, because Dubai has a unique leadership structure. Yeah. So the Sheikh of Dubai just announced the construction of a new airport, which will now be the largest in the world. It will have a 260 million capacity, sir. 260 million capacity in a year. Who should be thinking of such an airport? Who? Nigeria still doesn't even have an airport that can take Airbus. And then we are complaining and talking about ZAPs, local versus international. When all that can just be solved by just allowing your airport to be able to take planes that can bring in 800 people, the prices will drop. The flight ticket will drop naturally, because now you need 800 people per trip. And this way the things, again, I'm mentioning Lee Kuan Yew, because I love that man die. This was the same thing. Lee Kuan Yew saw, in fact, once the Singapore Air had just, bought one Boeing, and he went to ask them, said, how many airports in the world has this type of plane? Because it's big and it reduces the prices. They said 10. He said, we must be the number one, right? Let's turn all our airports to be able to take this kind of planes so that we will not be the hub, right? Because it will be cheaper. You can only be a hub when you have a structure to lift people in bulk to your country, and then from your country they can now take the smaller planes to other locations and things like that. But that's what we should be talking about in Nigeria. The largest airport in the world because of our population. But again, what do we know? We are not politicians after all. I'm just a businessman, hustling.
I actually came across a video, and I think that it calls for a lot of introspection. When they said churches have now been turned into supermarkets, and I think it's a sad tale of how those who call themselves men of God are given a bad reputation to Christendom and to the what Jesus Christ himself represent, or even God represent, they're making a big mockery of the concept of religion or the relationship of God to man.
Yeah.
And I think that also it then has taking away the focus and the character of men from what should be to something else. Everything has to be magical. Everything has to be miracle. Less of effort. A lot of people forget that there is a relationship that you need to have with God. Whatever religion that you operate, your creator is your master, and you need to have a relationship with him. What do you make of the growing churchy religion, mosque tendency in Nigeria, other than what we need to as values and morals that we are losing so fast in this country?
Well, so again, let's start with the people, because the religious institutions derive their power from the people. Let's be honest, right? So you cannot in any way fight them. And the politicians know that. And that's why you've seen that politicians have not been able to take decisions that curb the excesses of this religious institution. Because you know that they derive their power from the people. And by the time you need to contest election, you need to take a picture with a sheikh or with a bishop, else they won't vote for you. So it becomes an issue. So the first thing is that, how do we address the mindset of the people? And why are people turning to God? Why are they transferring their own responsibility to God? And that's the real question. And the answer is simple. We have all failed, from media to religious institution to educational institution. We have not helped people to know that, yes, there's a place of the supernatural, but there's no super without natural. So you have to do your own part before you then expect your maker. UAE is an example, and I keep saying it to my Muslim friends. UAE is an example of how you can use religion to change the life of people. Most people don't know it's based on Sharia. Okay? But see what's happening. Everybody is there. Christians are there. In fact, there was a day I went to church, a Roman Catholic church. The place was busy. They were doing 4 services. I've never seen Catholic that does 4 services inside UAE. But in Nigeria, what do you see? Somebody says something, they say stone him. When last did you see anybody stone anybody in UAE? Right? So it's that the religious leaders have also realized that they are tools in the hands of politicians. Politicians cannot do anything, and it's like a game between both parties.
So religion has become a weapon in the hands of the powerful and the mighty.
A weapon in the hands of politicians. They don't want religious leaders to teach the right thing, because the kind of politics we practice in Africa is not an empowering one. It's the servant, master leadership. Come and bow to me, come and prostrate, come and all those nonsense. That's the kind of leadership we practice. I don't know why, aside for cultural respect, why my employees should be prostrating. Aside cultural respect, if it's that, you are older than me, I mean, it's a culture in Yoruba, I get that. But because I pay your salary, you should be bowing down to me. It's pure nonsense. Pure nonsense. Right? Out of cultural respect, I agree. So for me, I think that what needs to change is what has started, right? Is that we all need to begin to call out what is bad, right? Across all religious sects. We all need to speak up. And I say to a lot of my, entrepreneurs, they say, Dr. Stephen, you're too vocal. They will come after your business. I said, they've been coming after, and that's normal. And that's their business. Thank God I have diversified very well. So if you like, come after my Nigerian business. I have other interests in other countries. But in reality, we need to speak up.
Yeah.
Because if you don't speak up, we'll all still be a victim of the system. All of us, including the politicians themselves.
Where I like us to anchor is what has become a worrisome or worrying tendency for me, and particularly in my own generation, and I see generation after my generation that some of this value has been eroded. And I see the homosexuality, the heterosexuality, the transgenderism, and all of those mixture of confusion of gender, things that the colorfulness of the confusion in the heads of people, and which I don't think the more we allow this thing to, I don't care who cares, and I don't care who listens. It's the fact that I don't believe in those things. I don't think those are the things that we are. But I'm worried that there is a vocal and a public display of these tendencies that are less than godly, that I do not find in my Bible as a Christian. And I see these things go on and on and on. Are you worried about these kind of tendencies too?
I am. I mean, I've said that there's a reason why we call it private life, right? It's because it's supposed to be private. And my argument is that whatever is your sexual orientation, it's a private thing. It's not a public thing. And unfortunately, again, back to politics, our African political class gained their legitimacy from, particularly Nigeria, US, and UK. So President Tinubu's government cannot directly go after LGBT, except he wants the Western power to come after him. That's the honest truth. And that's why in the case, for example, that went viral recently, it had to be EFCC and it has to be overspraying money, because you can't come directly. Look at what's happening in Ghana. The Ghanaian president, I dare him to sign that law. His party will not win. You should ask Jonathan what happened to him. Even Zimbabwe. Go and check what's going on with the Uganda, rather, with them passing that law. The Western world is speaking. So I think the issue really is that indirectly we've surrendered our power to the Western powers. So they are the ones who in many cases give a lot of our political leaders the legitimacy. Do you know that in Nigeria now, until US accepts that somebody is the president, technically the world doesn't believe the president is the president. So when we continue this nonsense, until we can run our country ourselves, until we can pick our leaders ourselves without Western interference, these things will continue. My argument has been Africans as of today do not want all this LGBT as of today, right? It may change in future, but it's a cultural thing beyond even religion. It's a cultural thing. It's just a taboo in the African culture. And I beg the Western powers to please respect these cultures, because they are the ones that keep moving the goalpost. Okay? We were worshipping Ogun and Oya and what were Africans worshipping until they came and said it's Jesus Christ, right? Christianity. And then, of course, Islam also in some parts. And we accepted this. Today, the same you is bringing values that are anti the religion you brought to Africa. So you can't continue to move the goalpost the way you want. Today this is right, tomorrow it is wrong. Even corruption, who taught us how to be corrupt? Africans didn't know what corruption was.
The word is not African.
It's not African.
The word is English.
In fact, it was impossible to be corrupt. Ogun will kill you. Right?
Ogun will strike you dead.
Ogun will strike you. We grew up, I still met a few part of that, where even in the northern part of Nigeria, because maybe where I grew up was much village, they will put the thing there. They will write the amount there. Yeah. You pick it, then you put the money under that paper and put a stone, and the person pick it. Today now, but that's the way it used to be. So Western world needs to leave us alone. That's all I will say.
Wow. Such a lot of knowledge packed in just one podcast interview, and so much more that we could have explored.
I hope I did not break anything, but I fear podcasts like this, because before you know it,
tables are broken. No.
You are in trouble.
I think to a large extent it allows for people to be able to express themselves without any inhibition. Well, we must sincerely thank you. Thank you so much. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And it's deep. One of these, I love your show. You are a very deep.
Thank you so much.
And I love what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, everyone. Dr. Stephen Akintayo has shared with us his wealth of experience in business and how politics is tied to almost all of our endeavors. No doubt, it is a different view altogether, and that's the essence of these podcasts, having the benefits of people of various backgrounds sharing their thoughts on challenges and, most importantly, offering solutions on how we can solve our problems as a nation. On this note, I say God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and may Nigeria succeed. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Sean Akintayo. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Mike On Podcast with Sean Okimbaloy. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind.